Welcome to Greg's Review. So, this will be my first extensive review and comparison video, and I'm using a camera setup. Unfortunately, you'll see the shadows of me and my camera. I need better lighting, obviously. But let's push forward. Let us press on. So today I will be reviewing and comparing the Ultraspinners mk1 Prime Forge against the Ultraspinners mk2 Prime Forge. As you can see, the sizes are quite different. So let's start off with measurements and weights, or the measurement of size and weight. So we got our trusty scale over here, and fire that puppy up. We'll go ahead and do weights first. So we got 0. Alright, so the Prime Forge mk1 is anodized aluminum button and core with a all ceramic 608 bearing and stainless steel for the Prime Forge accessory. Fully machined details, no etching. So let's see what that weighs. It's coming in at about 147.5 grams. Let's go ahead and weigh that again just for comparison. Yep, 147.5/0.6. The screws that hold the Prime Forge accessory to the core, I believe, are also stainless steel. So let's compare that to the mk2. mk2, or this particular mk2, the buttons are flame anodized titanium, I believe. The core is brass. It has brass caps on the empty holes. I believe the screws are exactly the same. Take the same Allen key, stainless steel. And then the Prime Forge accessory is also stainless steel. However, all these accents are laser etched, I believe. These holes here are milled, but the rest is laser etched. But otherwise, this chunky monkey is brass and stainless steel, not aluminum and stainless steel. So it's still pretty heavy, even though it's smaller. Coming in at about 117.5. Yep, 117.4.5-ish. So still pretty heavy, but I believe that's mainly because the core is brass. So just to talk a little bit about the kits, I'll do the length measurements here in a moment. So the mk1 I bought directly from Ultraspinners as a kit with the accessory, the cog accessory. The cog is aluminum, anodized aluminum. These weights are anodized aluminum. Everything here is anodized aluminum. Pretty much the only thing that's not is the screws and the Prime Forge accessory. My mk2 I got on the secondary. The core came with 4 brass weights, and I believe these little transition pieces here are also brass. They feel pretty weighty for their size. And this other button that I got is also brass. So basically a solid brass mk2 modulator, and then the Prime Forge accessory of stainless steel. I also scored the brass cog, so that is solid brass as well, and some tattletale wings, which I'm stoked about, having original tattletale wings as opposed to a clone. I always kind of shied away from getting the clone, so happy to get those. So I'm pretty happy with that mk2 setup that I managed to score, and thanks very much to the person who sold it to me. And so let's do some size comparisons. So let's fire up the measurement tool here. Calipers, cheap as they are, they still measure. So the mk1 total length of the Prime Forge is about 73.5 millimeters. Width at the screws, come on, there we go, 48.5 millimeters. The thickness of the Prime Forge accessory, 11.2.3 millimeters. Thickness of the core with the concave buttons is 28.5 millimeters. And the other buttons are convex. It looks like they're going to be about 32 millimeters, 31.8.9 millimeters. Just for interest, the cog at the widest points is 53.1. And what haven't I measured? I think that's all the measurements for that guy. So let's go ahead and do the Mark II. Mark II Prime Forge comes in at 60.3 millimeters in total length. Width at the screws, 38.6-ish. Thickness of the Prime Forge accessory, about 9.5 millimeters. 9.5, 9.6, depending on how much I push on it. And thickness of the buttons, and I don't have any convex buttons, so just concave, comes in at about 23.7.8-ish. And let's go ahead and measure the cog. So the Mark II cog, 46.1 millimeters or so. So the cog is not significantly different in size, but I think the cores fit. Yeah, I mean the cores themselves aren't significantly different, but I don't know, percentage-wise, it's probably quite a bit. So let's go ahead and show off what they can do. So this of course, this is my favorite configuration. That's why I bought them. And I'll go ahead and talk about them a little bit before I reconfigure them. As I mentioned earlier, the details on the Mark I are fully milled in, and I appreciate that. I wish that the details on the Mark II were also milled in rather than laser etched. There's a spot on here somewhere where the laser etching either didn't take or, yeah, right up here. There's a little spot right there where it's like it's not etched or something, because this stuff doesn't really scratch off very easily. So I'm pretty sure it's not paint. I like the size of the Mark II better. When I had the Mark I, I bought this right off the bat because huge Transformers fan. Just getting into spinners, it was a no-brainer, so I bought it. And when I got it, I liked it, but it's big and heavy, and I don't really like the big and heavy ones quite so much. When the Mark II came out, there wasn't really much help for me to understand how different it actually was from the Mark I. So to me, it looked like maybe a slightly smaller Mark I, but with laser etching instead of machined details, which I prefer machined. So I didn't buy the Mark II because I figured, why waste the money? And then, sometime later, I discovered that the Mark II is actually a bit smaller, not just a little bit, but of course, by then it was sold out. And these do not come up on the market very often. In fact, this one I scored through conversations with somebody that I was buying something else from. So, again, very happy to have gotten that. Now that I have both, this one will probably just be sitting around. It more or less was just kind of sitting around anyways. I did bring it to a local Transformers convention. Everybody thought it was really cool, even though it was a spinner. There were some teachers there who were also Transformers fans, of course, but they were like, "Oh God, fidget spinners! I hate those things." But then they saw it was a Matrix, and they were like, "Okay, that's cool. I'm okay with that." But I was always afraid that it was gonna, I was gonna drop it or whatever. The Mark II, on the other hand, this is actually something that I could actually see carrying in a pouch of some sort, of course, but and taking out and playing with, because it's actually not such a big behemoth of a spinner. I would like something a little bit more, I guess, flat. You know, that looks like the Matrix, like that, but is a little less bulky. So, if anybody comes up with one of those, I'm all for it. Please make it in brass. So, yeah, I mean, I like the Mark II a lot better. Mark I is great. Glad to have them both in my collection. And, yeah. So, let's go ahead and reconfigure. Or remodulate. Nice thing is that the screws take the same Allen key. One of the downsides of both of these is that the core is only held in by, you know, 2 screws, one on the top, one on the bottom. And unfortunately that does allow the core to spin in there even when the screws are tight. And if you don't have it perfectly lined up, or if you don't have the Prime Forge accessory perfectly even, then it kind of wobbles. And so sometimes that takes some tweaking in order to get it lined up and tight. The Mark II is a little bit better about it. They put some scores in the Prime Forge accessory to help keep the core from moving too much, but it still moves, so it doesn't help as much as they hoped it would. But there we go. There is the Mark II Prime Forge and the Mark I. And let's take a look at those screws a little bit more closely. Okay, yeah, same head, but obviously a much shorter screw for the Mark I. This is probably only like 4 millimeters, and this one's probably like 8. So definitely don't want to mix those up. And I'll go ahead and put the bar accessories on the Mark I. So the nice thing about these is that you don't need the screws. They are screws. The threads are built in there. And they are a little bit fiddly because they're spheres, so got to kind of make sure you're doing it right when you try to screw it in. And it's aluminum, so you got to be really careful not to cross thread it, because if you force it in, you are going to ruin those threads. So make sure it goes in easy all the way, and then you can tighten it up there. So, yeah, I mean, this thing is huge. I really don't like this very much. But comparably, let's go ahead and do the Mark II, and I'll just do 2 of these. Of course, because it has 4 holes in the sides with these little caps, I can take those caps off and make it a quad. Come on. There we go. But I don't like quads, so I'm not even going to bother doing that. Plus, taking those little slotless caps off and putting them back on is a bit of a pain. So again, not going to do that. This is a little bit more my size, but with so much weight out at the end, and this thing is heavy. Let's go ahead and scale these puppies in bar configuration here. Alright, zeroed out. So the Mark II with brass weights, 134.5 grams. So that's heavier than the stainless steel Prime Forge accessory. Makes sense because it's brass. Now this is 100% anodized aluminum right now, other than the bearing. So it should be fairly light. Yep, 65.5 grams. So heavy for aluminum because it's so big, but you know, light for its size because it's aluminum. Right? Makes sense. So let's go ahead and put on the cogs, because at least those are kind of cool, even though I'm a bar guy. It's nice that you can do this by hand. So one of the cool things about, in fact, the cool things about the weights is because they are essentially replacements for the screws. If I wanted to, I could use them to hold the prime forge accessory on there. So I'll just kind of throw this one on there as an example. I think it looks kind of goofy, but it can be done. So imagine that on both sides there, spinning around. Well, heck, I'm halfway there. Let's do it. Again, being careful not to cross thread. So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, no, that's no. It can be done. And that's the only reason I did it. I think that's probably the second time I had ever done that, and have no desire to ever do it again. So putting the cog on, you can do the same thing, or use the screws. So I'll go ahead and use these guys for this one. It's a little bit more reasonable for this accessory to use these as screws. And because I'm a bar guy, that's how I prefer to use the cog, is with the little weights on there. Okay. Getting those lined up can be a pain, as I mentioned earlier. Alright, so, and then you gotta turn the core a little bit. Sometimes you gotta just kind of make it go while you look down the side of it to see if it's wobbling side to side. But there we go, cog with the weights. Let's go ahead and weigh that. So again, 100% anodized aluminum, cog with the weights, 85.2 grams. Yep, 85.2, 0.3, 0.2, 0.3, whatever. Cheap scale. So, you know, a little bit heavier, obviously. The cog, definitely better for, you know, tri-lovers and quad lovers and people who just like the gyro with the screws rather than the weights. So let's go ahead and pop those on and give that a weight. Oh, it's a little loose. Okay. I mean, it's aluminum, so you don't even get much of the gyro effect. The brass cog on the Mark II definitely can feel that. So I'll go ahead and switch that out and do a weight comparison. But yeah, this is nothing. It's aluminum, you know. No, not my kind of thing. But let's give it a weight. 68.8. 68.8. Alright, so let's do the Mark II. Go ahead and take off the brass weights and put on the cog. I'll go ahead and weigh just one of these weights here. Oh, shiz! Oh well, not reselling this anyways. Alright, so one of these weights is 34 grams. Let's try that again. 33.8 grams. So you can do your own calculations to figure out what 4 of those puppies would weigh. And the cog by itself, almost 60 grams, 59.2. 59.3 grams. So with the brass core, oh yeah, because it's 4-sided, now I got to take these things off. Great. Because there's no slot, you kind of got to use pressure. There we go. I think I'll do my cleanup after this video. I'm not going to clean all this stuff back. Come on. Okay. So I guess you could put screws in all 4 sides on this one. I'll just do the 2. Yep. Just use these screws here. In fact, maybe I'll do one on the top and one on the side. That'll be interesting. It is nice that it's the same tool. So if you have multiple modulators, you can just get by with one tool. Of course, this will be wobbly, won't it? Yep, it's wobbly. But you can definitely feel the gyroscopic effect now, because that's a whole lot of weight spinning around. So, but no judder, because it's basically it's a cog. So, all right, core and cog, 127. Yep, just over 127 grams. So that's a weighty little chunk. But that's not how I play. So that's more or less the thing, but I'll go ahead and put on the tattletale wings because they're cool. I am a Harry Potter fan. Not an uber fan, but I do like Harry Potter. So these things, the screws are built in. Just screw it on, and I'm pretty sure these are stainless steel. They have the weight of stainless steel. Each wing comes in at 5 grams, and they are teeny weeny. And they are apparently threaded just perfectly, because as soon as you get it to the core, it stops, and it's secure. And it is kind of funky to line up because they are not on center. There we go. Snitch! Catch the snitch! Another fun way to mess with these is to unscrew one a little bit. It's loose though, but then when you spin it, it's like it's fluttering. So that's kind of cool. I wouldn't do that very much though, because you're liable to unscrew that wing. And I didn't put the caps on. It looks better with the caps on, but when it's spinning, and I would probably, if I was doing tattletale, I would probably use the brass caps. I think I forgot to mention this earlier. The Mark II is a, I believe it's a 188 bearing, and it has stainless steel. So all stainless steel R188 bearing in there. It's like 8 or 9 ball. So there's that. Alrighty, so I like the Mark II better because it's smaller. I like the Mark II Prime Forge because it's smaller and lighter. I like my Mark II kit better because it's all brass. And I have all the nice accessories in brass, and then I got the tattletale wings. Mark I kit, cool, because it's a matrix, but that's pretty much where it ends for me. Hope that was informative and enjoyable, if not a little bit long-winded. And hopefully you'll come back and enjoy future reviews. Thank you so much, and have a great day.